Okay, so a little bit about myself. I went to graduate school for architecture and landscape architecture at the University of Colorado, Denver, where I dual degreed in architecture and landscape architecture. Um, my original intent in going into architecture was to do single family uh, sustainable design. And it feels as though now, after 24 years, I'm coming full circle into doing what I originally intended to go to school for. My my professional career really kind of went up into the private or the public sector, and I built parks and recreation facilities for the city of Seattle, Boulder, Colorado, and Bend here. Our first attempt at a net zero house is the Albany house and the ADU, and it will be a net zero product. The house itself is a market rate house and is approximately 2,000 square feet, and the ADU is approximately 600 square feet. This particular picture is my hippie child standing on a root of two of the large trees that were on the lot that were taken down because of wind damage during a storm in the winter, a couple winters ago. So a little bit about Bend and the property. The property is located on the west side of Bend. Specifically, it's at 14th and Albany. It's a great area for walkability to stores, the river, breweries, and the grocery store. Interestingly enough, a little bit about Bend. The demographic is changing here dramatically. We anticipate an additional 50,000 people to move here by 2030. That might be a little different now since the pandemic has taken effect. We've had a rapid shift in our population, and we're anticipating even more growth. So how did we get to net zero? This is a list of things we did to get to net zero. We used SIP panels. We put a 14 kW solar system on both the ADU and house, which consisted of 37 panels. We used ductless heating and cooling with a heat pump. We used energy recovery, or ERV, for our exhaust and makeup air, heat pump water heater, and we house sealed using Aero Barrier. I'll get into more specifics as we get into the presentation. This is the house plans in the ADU. The house itself is two-story with a very big great room expanding from the ground floor of 26 feet to the roof line. The ADU is on top of a two-car garage with a fairly large storage unit as well. The house has been built 12 different times. They are house plans we purchased from Ted Clifton of Net Zero Plans. Ted Clifton has been in the industry for 40 years and has been designing net zero houses for the last 25. And he designs his houses specifically to be used as SIPs. One reason we felt comfortable with this design, friends of mine built this exact same house up in Seattle 7 years ago, and I was along with them during that process. So it was comforting to know, kind of have a better idea of what was going on. So SIP houses, this is how they arrive. They show up in a flatbed truck, and you feel very overwhelmed at first, not knowing really what to do with all these panels. And then you literally sort them by walls and roof and how you're going to stage the construction, what walls you're going to start first and what walls are going to be last, and where the roof goes. We have a 5,000 square foot lot, and you can imagine that this was taking over every square inch of the lot. With the foundation for both the house and the ADU taking up the other half, was a very tight site. Putting together the house is literally putting together a gigantic puzzle. You constantly need to be checking the shop drawings to make sure you got the right panel. Most importantly, you got to make sure you got the right panel on the right side up and not upside down, which can happen pretty easily. The panels themselves have channels every 18 and 48 inches, both vertically and horizontally, for electrical wiring. And if we can, is this going to time lapse? No. this is a time lapse of us putting up the first floor of the ADU. And here we go. And this is over the course of a 2-hour period. You can see the shadows barely changing. As an example of putting up a wall upside down, the wall that we're putting up right now in that corner, no, not yet, sorry. The OSB panels are the biggest OSB panels manufactured in the world. They are anywhere from 20 to 24 feet long and 8 feet wide. So as you can see, that panel we just put up, we immediately go back and look at it and decide it's upside down, and we flip it over. And so this last wall was a 20-foot long wall that we had to move into place using the forklift and a lot of manpower. We've discovered that after our learning curve was a little bit reduced, that really putting together a SIP house is using come-alongs, straps, and sledgehammers, and a lot of muscle. So back to how we got to NetZero. This is an arrow that we just took on Monday of Sunlight Solar putting the solar panels on the house. And not complete yet, but you can see the racking for the panels on the main house. But at the end of that day, we were completely off the grid, or not paying for power, but we were producing power and giving it back to the grid, which is pretty exciting. So again, for our getting the exhaust air and makeup air, we chose one with the ERV, a Life Breath ERV. There is a head in every room, and the cycle is on and off every 90 seconds. It will take the exhaust air for 90 seconds and then push the fresh air in every 90 seconds. It is pushing about 200 CFM into the house, and during that time, we had a kind of a challenge in that we put a downdraft for the stove in, and it was going to pull 600 CFM out of the house in a minute. So we had to go wire the thermostat to trick the ERV into running constantly during the time in which the downdraft was cycling through. We used heat pump, ductless water heating and cooling with the Mitsubishi heat pump. We have 5 heads throughout the house, and 1 in every bedroom, 1 in the great room, and then 1 in the hallway of the 2nd floor. Again, to kind of help with the circulation of air throughout the house, we used a heat pump water heater. One for the main house is a 65-gallon one, and the ADU is a 40-gallon one. And then to get the house really tight to perform really well, we used Aero Barrier. We started with the Aero Barrier. We had a ACH of about 5.5, and then after the Aero Barrier for the house, we got it down to a 0.6, and with the ADU, we got it down to a 0.3. So very tight, which will help us achieve net zero. So the house will be Earth Advantaged certified as a net zero home. We did embrace the incentives from the Energy Trust and took advantage of all of them that we possibly could. And currently we are looking for more property to build more houses on, whether they're affordable housing or they're going to be spec houses such as this. It will be to be determined, but we look forward to continuing our endeavors into building net zero. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Perry. That was fascinating. I love the lapse with the SIP that needed to be flipped over.
Yeah. Thanks, Don. We done?
And we're done. All right. So I'll stop recording there.